Elizabeth Loftus, in her endeavors on eyewitness memory, has become among the most famous psychologists ever. And I think you could argue, pound for pound, is the single most famous living psychologist. And we have a connection to her here at SFA. Our recently departed grad student that just graduated in May of 23 is working with her right now. And she's one of her last grad students that she'll ever take, because Loftus, I believe, is getting near 80 years old and may want to retire soon. But we have a wonderful departed student that went to work with her, and it's a very exciting development. But in her early career, and some of these research articles go back roughly 50 years to 74, she's argued that eyewitness memory, eyewitness testimony, is often very overconfident, confidently delivered, but inaccurate. And she had some clever articles, again, dating to the 1974, give or take, with Palmer and some other people. She's championed studies using filmed car accidents and presuppositions and other sorts of things that reveal the vulnerability of memory, and that eyewitness testimony is kind of lousy. For example, she had that suspicion, and she had some participants watch a filmed car accident. You can imagine what the film looked like in the 70s. It was reel to reel. But in this particular wreck, one car bumped into the other with some degree of speed. And what they asked participants later, after they had watched this accident, they asked them to deliver the speed estimate of the offending vehicle that rear-ended the other one. And if the word were contacted, the average guess was 31.8, hit, bumped, collided, smashed. You can see that with the word being altered more severely from bottom to top, the speed estimates increased. And that is very suggestive of how fallible that eyewitness testimony is. If I could just introduce that suggestion, then I've got a very plausible possibility of overestimating the speed, or at least telling a different story. In the same paper, she asked, did you see any broken glass? Now, I should say there was no broken glass. The accident was not that severe. If the people heard the word smashed, they said yes 16 out of 50 times. So I should say 50 participants. 16 of 50 participants said yes. On the other hand, if the word were just hit, which is much less severe than smashed, it was only 7. So one suggestion right there is that the word smashed caused about 1/3 of the participants to falsely remember that there was broken glass, which is kind of troublesome. And what if the police officer said that, came in with the word smashed? What if they had a leading term? So her general point, and she's made a career out of this, both with academic research and testifying in court, is that eyewitness testimony is extremely, extremely fallible. And I certainly support her position. I teach an entire class once every 6 years or so. I just taught it in 22 on false memories, in which we get into some of the molecular details of these very clever articles. So another sort of, I guess you could say, idea behind eyewitness memory, or something that was similar to it. And I'm looking on pages, excuse me, got past that. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt here. Eyewitness testimony. I'm on the right page, on page 167. I was looking for the page number. It's sort of an extension of this. It's a suggestion that memory's constructive. In other words, I hear the word smashed and I construct memories around that might include broken glass. So it's constructive and can use abstractions and combinations of things not presented. So there's a clever experiment, very relatable, on the bottom right over on page 167. Was this sentence presented? The sweet jelly was on the table. And as it turns out, that sentence was not presented, but people believe that it was. Because earlier, what was presented was, quote unquote, the jelly was sweet and the jelly was on the table. Those two were presented, but people couldn't help but tie them together and associate them. And with the combination not being presented, they're easily duped. So we're good at processing gists, but the exact nature of the syntax is a little bit beyond us. And Hence, we tend to construct memories, as Bransford demonstrated here. Bransford had some other clever experiments back in the day. So we'll speak more of this in a later chapter. But I do happen to believe that memory is constructive also. I'll give you an example, if you'll indulge me. January 6th, 21. People went into the Capitol building. It's been variously described as the near end of democracy or a riot. Everybody has opinions. But among the stories that emanated from that building was that people defiled the building by having bowel movements in the building. They eliminated in the marble hallways. And why would anybody believe that? Well, these people were up to no good. They were angry. And that was an extension of this outburst. And I'll tell you right now, I happen to believe that that's not true. And it's not that I'm clamoring for it, but there are no such photographs of any such thing. It's not the most natural thing to do, even when in a state of anger. You defile yourself in the process. You're offending the other rioters who wouldn't want to come across human waste, etc. Didn't make any sense. And it was largely dropped within days thereafter. There's of course no proof of it because I strongly believe it didn't happen. So why would anybody say such a thing? Is because we construct memories. Oh my gosh, these people were so awful that they defiled the hallways with bowel movements. And I happen to believe that that's not true. And that's among the things that we could add to stories that add a sort of a scintillating aspect that doesn't really ring true in the actuality of the situation. So you could think of any sort of extension thereabout. So in the future, people might still tell stories about people they don't like, and they embellish them with what appear to be natural extensions of things. So I'll tell you another story, or just an example. Let's fast forward to the year 2050. President Trump is probably deceased by then. So someone might say, oh, I'll never forget, he went on TV and he gave speeches on these drunken rants. He said this bad thing and that bad thing. And if somebody didn't like President Trump as a youth today, they might tell that story in middle age in the year 2050. But it'd be very unlikely to be true because Donald Trump is known to be a teetotaler. He doesn't drink at all. So if somebody were to tell that story, would they be lying? No, but they're likely constructing a memory, something that already has a strong impression on them, and they take a natural extension of it to tell an embellished story. And so it goes with some of these memories that Elizabeth Loft has shown to take place in a laboratory.